Welcome to the first episode of the Archer's Annual. I'm here with Chad Snyder. I'm Morgan Newswinger. Let's get started with dart talk. So the theory behind dart talk is you're going to throw a dart at the dartboard, and when you hit the dartboard, it's going to correspond with a question. Now, if you hit the yellow bullseye, you're going to get $20, and if you hit the black bullseye, you get $50.
A little bit of incentive.
Yeah, go for it.
I like it. Okay. Let's see what we got here. We're going with the black dart here. All right, here we go. Going for a bullseye.
2.
Question number 2.
Number 2. All right. What style of release do you use? Traditional, thumb, or back tension?
I use a thumb button release, but I try to shoot as much as I can as a back tension release, as far as pushing and pulling through the bow and striving for like a surprise shot. That's what I'm going for.
Okay.
But so, I do practice with a back tension, but yes, for hunting purposes, it's a thumb button.
Right, and you do like target during the winter, right? So do you use a back tension then?
I use a hinge release, which would be a form of back tension. Yeah. So yeah, a hinge release.
So you use kind of two different ones.
I use 2 different ones. Mainly, if I'm practicing and working on my shot, I'm using my hinge release. But I mean, I also bounce back and forth between my thumb button. But yes, if I'm working on my shot, it's a hinge release.
Yeah. So at some point, you probably decided against a wrist release.
I did. So I started way back shooting a trigger release, a wrist rocket, as people call it. And punching the trigger and everything, and knew that there was something better out there, and so I switched to a thumb button release, and instantly my groups got better. But that didn't quite change everything. Like I had to fully rebuild my shot. Mm-hmm. So between the thumb button, my hinge release, and then I also had a tension release. So you set the release a couple pounds more than your holding weight of your bow. Okay. So as you're at full draw, you're pulling against your wall, and then you keep pulling against your wall, and your shot breaks to give you a surprise release. Okay. So that's what you're trying to strive for.
Yeah.
Is a surprise release.
It makes sense. It kind of falls into what we're talking about today about practicing with our bows, how you prepare for the season. That's what we're talking about, how you practice for the season, how you prepare. So let's get into that. When do you start shooting your bow? What time of the year?
I don't stop really.
I
try to shoot all year round, whether it's, so this time of year everybody's getting ready for hunting season. We're a month away from hunting season here. So everybody's getting ready for hunting season. But I don't stop. I shoot, through hunting season. It rolls into wintertime. I shoot like a 3-spot target. Roll through that, and then I try to shoot as many 3Ds as I can. Whether that be tournaments or just shooting with buddies or however. Yeah, I try to shoot all year round.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's not how I do it.
It's a good habit to get into.
It's been better this year, but it's definitely, I've been working on that trigger punching thing early part of the year, so that was from like June through July. And now that I'm got over that, I would say, or end of July and through August here, early September, I'm really honing in, but I should shoot more, but.
Yeah, I guess I used to get your bow out in, September or whatever, you're getting ready for hunting season, go shoot and you're ready to go. But the more that I shoot, and it's not just a thing that I do for hunting, like I enjoy shooting my bow, I enjoy archery in general. So I guess it's a hobby of mine, it's a passion of mine, so I guess that's why I do shoot all year round.
Good. Okay, so step me through your thought process, like when you're shooting, like when you...
In a tree stand or like in...
no, when you're practicing. Target-wise.
Backyard.
Yeah. So from the moment you put your release on, you grab your bow, you're ready. The moment before you hook your release on, let's kind of walk through that process a little bit. Like, what are the things you're checking when you're shooting?
So step up to your target, assess your target. If you're just shooting in the backyard, I don't know. My first couple rounds of just shooting, is just to warm up. I'm not really worried about where my arrows go. That being said, it is cool to challenge yourself, especially when you're like rushed for time, as far as like, you know, if you can squeeze a few arrows in before work or, you know, after work, something like that before it gets dark, of like, I have 3 arrows, I gotta make them all count, or I can shoot 1 arrow, I gotta make them all count, type of deal. So, yeah, I guess making every arrow count. So after I warm up, it's just working through my shot process. You want everything to be, you know, second nature.
Yeah.
That's.
So when you're pulling your bow back, like, what are your anchor points? Like, what are you looking for to be consistent, like with your anchor points?
So.
And just explain what an anchor point is exactly.
Okay, so an anchor point is where you anchor on your face, on your string. A lot of people shoot a kisser button. I personally don't. So my anchor points are with a handheld release. The way your hand holds a release makes a V. So that V will go right on the side of my draw. So that's anchor point number 1. And you always want to anchor, instead of going like when you pull back directly looking through your peep, it's always good to anchor first. So it's always, you know, anchor. So for me, it's side of the jaw, side of the corner of the mouth, tip of the nose, and then my peep is my next reference. So I try to get those 3 done first, and then I go right to my peep. And if your bow's set up correctly, there should be no trying to find your peep. Your peep should be set. Or I mean, when you get all those 3 anchor points set up, your peep will be right there.
Right.
It should be. That's where your bow should be set up.
Right. Yeah. The one thing I've been trying to do with that is when you're looking through your peep, keep that peep in your sight consistent, like lined up. A lot of times I'm holding for a long time, and then you start like you're really trying to hover in, and you're like start fading or something, and your peep will start covering up part of your sight. So
your peep sight is the driver of your bow. If you can remember, you know, anything, especially like in the woods, moment of truth, like anchor points is good and everything, but that should all be second nature. But that peep sight is the total driver to accuracy. So to be able to line your peep up right and make sure that everything's, you know, centered in your sight housing, centered around your peep, and keeping an eye on if you're fading in or out of your peep. The other thing is when you have a lot of sights have your bubble on the bottom, like that's not just to look there and look cool. Like you actually got to use your bubble. And so being able to watch, like, so when I look through my peep, I watch the bottom half where my bubble's at, and I also watch, like, so that would be like 6 o'clock, and then I watch at like 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So, and keep an eye, and between 9 and 3, I guess.
Yeah.
Would be the 4 points of the clock. So as long as you're watching those points, that you're not fading in and out of your peep.
Yeah.
Instead of watching the whole ring, honing in on those 2 spots, trying to, and the one on the bottom is also down by your bubble, so you can keep it on your bubble too while you're there.
So as far as your stance when you're shooting, like I've seen guys that when they pull back and their upper body looks like it's like off like the center, so their upper body comes down and then like their their legs are over here, they're like way like leaning back. Is there something that you try and do with that, or is that not really part of your how you? So
pretty much everything is built off of archery is built off of triangles and T's is what you're trying to look for. So you're trying to look for, you know, a nice straight stance, preferably, like if we can just use an example on the table, if your stance, if this is your neutral stance, like standing completely parallel with your shoulders, I like to have my back foot as a right-handed archer to be front just a little bit. So like if your big toe and like the ball of your foot, if you line your big toe and the ball of your foot so that your back foot is just front a little bit, that just opens you up a little bit. Now sometimes like guys will hit their arms every now and then and they wonder why. Yeah. That's because their stance is too far open, so that your shoulders are actually, you know, face towards the target. So like even as I'm sitting in the chair right here, this would be considered an open stance. How my arms a lot further open, where otherwise I'd want to be, straight at the camera and pointed this way.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything starts with your stance, and then the hitch part. That can be just a mix of draw length. Your draw length's too long, or a high shoulder where that shoulder starts to come up and push back, so that pushes everything back on your shoulder, and your stance it doesn't follow everything. So like if you can just imagine like a perfect T where your legs come up and your arms go straight out. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah. So there is something wrong when you see that.
Yeah, that would be. I would consider that improper.
Yeah.
But now the thing is archery is a game of being able to repeat everything that you do. So if you're somebody that can repeat that over and over again and you're making good shots, I have a hard time, trying to correct somebody's form because they're shooting well.
Right.
But it is improper form, and you're in the long run when you're hunched up and hitched back and whatever other terms you want to use, that's not improving your accuracy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed when I was last year from this year, I tried to get my head front farther. Like I felt like when I was drawing back, my head was back so far. Right. Like I might have been pretty straight, but my head was just cocked back. Right. So keeping that thing straight, keep my head straight.
And you should be able to, like, your head should be on a swivel. So like you should be able to like swivel your head to your peep. You shouldn't have to be trying to find and fish for your peep in or out. So that would be maybe your draw length needs to be adjusted by a little bit, or your D loop's too long or something like that.
Yeah. So as far as your hand grip, when you're gripping the bow, I know most people try and keep their fingers open. Is that what you do as well, or what's your approach
to a form? So the idea is you want to have a nice relaxed grip where you're not putting any torque on the bow. I know some guys do the full open hand, and so your fingers are out here like this. But then really your bow grip is really only right in this part here. So there's this lifeline on your hand, and you want to be on the trying to think here on the bone structure of your hand, right on that lifeline. If you can feel in your hand, there's a bone structure that goes up through there. So if you're like really putting a death grip on a bow or really wrapping your bow around, you're gonna have torque in that bow.
Yeah.
So for me, I shoot a Hoyt. They have a real nice groove that goes right down the whole front of the riser, and there's so pretty much my two fingers kind of go in that groove, not in the groove to give it torque, but just rest on the groove. It gives me a good reference point. And same, everything repeat, repeat, and that's gonna help with your accuracy.
Yeah, that's cool. I never really had it like my fingers are kind of. Sometimes I try and rest them on the front. Sometimes I do different things. I'm definitely not perfect on that end.
No, I'm not. I try not. Yeah.
Yeah,
but if you can repeat that grip and do the same thing every time, and if it's a matter of my target bows, I actually either wrap in hockey tape or grip tape of some sort to give it a little extra grip. My hunting bow, I have different grips and side plates on it, so being able to have a grip that's repeatable, and after shooting, especially if you wrap your bow, after a little bit you'll get some nice grooves in there where you'll be able to your fingers will go to exactly
right. When you practice, how far are you shooting normally compared to how far you're shooting in tree stand?
Okay, so where I live currently, I can get 30 yards in my backyard, but I have access to other ranges. So in the backyard, I'm shooting 30 yards. So when I come home from work or go out and shoot before work or whatever, normally it's 30 yards is my max I can get in my yard. But I try to at least once a week try to go shoot at the range, and I end up I try to stretch it out to 100 yards. So in your question of how far of pretty much my hunting range and my practice range. So I try to, a good rule of thumb is practice double what your kill range is. So you're a 30 yard and in guy, then you should be practicing at 60 yards. And if you're and so on and so forth. I wouldn't say I guess if my extended range that I practice at is like 100 yards, I wouldn't say my cap is necessarily 50 yards, but that's, I mean, if you can shoot consistently at 100 yards, I would say that would be
right.
It'd be good. It would be that's practice. That's the best practice you can do.
Right.
Shooting at long distance because it shows imperfections in your form. If you have a hitch in your form or your form isn't right, it's going to show up at 100 yards.
Yeah.
and back to the practice that like what I do, like my practice. So I'm back shooting 30 yards at my house. If I'm off, let's just say you're shooting at 30 yards. If I'm off an inch at 30 yards, and you're still in your dot, but you're off an inch. What does that do at 100 yards?
Exactly. You're going to be out.
You're going to be out 4, 6, 8 inches.
Yeah.
So striving to have a purpose when you practice, make a game with yourself. You know, if you have a target with a bunch of dots on or a deer target or whatever, make a game with yourself. You know, I'm not going inside till I, you know, smoke all the dots where they need to be or whatever. So make it fun. And that's what competition has really helped me, is being able to put yourself. That's the closest thing that I've found to being a deer woods under pressure, is being in pressure in competitions. That was kind of what started my whole competition thing, of being able to put yourself in those situations that when it comes to shooting a deer, it's as close as you can get.
Yeah. Yeah. My other question was how often you practice, but you pretty much answered that. I mean, pretty much once a week you said you try and go.
I try to go shoot longer ranges. Now, it may be, and if it's a weekend, maybe I'll go like a Saturday, Sunday afternoon, or something like that, or a Friday night. I try to shoot as much as I can at the range to stretch out my longer distances.
Yeah.
And another tip is just when you shoot, it's a lot of fun to shoot like, all right, so you shoot at 70, 80, 100 yards. It's a lot of fun to shoot that, but then you're like, oh, let's go close to 20 and see how it looks. Try not to do that. That's because when you get used, if you can get used to that sight picture and the way your bow's going off and how your hold is, and you're shooting at 70, 80, whatever your distance is, whatever your most comfortable distance is that you can shoot. And then stick to that. Stick to that a couple times, and then go front and check your marks and everything. But as you shoot further, you get used to the way that sight picture is.
And then when you step into 20, when that deer's right there,
right.
it's like
easy. A chip shot. It's like right on your lap. So.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Let's wrap it up with a Bible verse today. Since this is the first episode, I'm going with Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I like that verse because it's God created the heavens and the earth. I mean, we were down at the Creation Museum last year, and it really hit me. It's like you walk through the main gate, there's a rainbow there, and it's not because of pride. It's because God saved the world through a flood, and it's like God created the heavens and the earth, and you apply that, think about that, it sets other things in place, and it creates a good foundation for your life. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you later.